Are you struggling to see consistent improvement? If so, you're likely experiencing one of the same issues I faced whenever I hit a skill plateau. So how can you get past that plateau you're currently suffering from? Let's figure that out now. There could be multiple logical explanations as to why you're not experiencing any improvement. However, typically there's only going to be a couple of major reasons. Those could be not knowing what to practice, consistently doing the same things repeatedly and expecting a different result, suffering from burnout, or not being a student of the game. Let's dive deeper into each of these topics and dissect which issue or issues you might be facing that are causing you to plateau. So let's get started with not knowing what to practice. This is actually probably the most common issue you'll see when a player hits a skill plateau. They simply just don't know what to practice to get better. If you find yourself struggling from this issue of not knowing what to practice, I would recommend trying out a technique that I learned from Marin TM. Play 20 ranked solo games, land somewhere semi-safe, get looted up, then from there, W key everyone until you die. Now, what you need to do is get a notepad open and write the reason you died. For example, if you lost an aim duel, write aim. If you missed an edit, write edits. And you're just simply going to repeat this process for 20 games. If you can do more games, that will provide you more accurate data. However, I wouldn't suggest doing anything less than 20 games, otherwise your sample size isn't going to be large enough to make conclusive decisions on what you actually struggle with. After you've collected all of this data, now you need to look back at your notepad and tally up all of the reasons you died. So let's use an example and say you died due to your aim 12 out of those 20 games. But your mechanics only got you killed in 2 out of those 20 games. We're going to pick the fundamental that got you killed in the majority of your games. So in this example, it would be the aim. Now, you're going to train your aim for 2 weeks and then redo the benchmarking process. Ideally, if you do this correctly, you'll be benchmarking your skill roughly 3 times a month. Once at the beginning, once in the middle, and once at the end of the month. Each time you benchmark, ideally you should be finding new things that you need to practice. Once you get to the point where all of your deaths are evenly spread out across multiple reasons, that's when we're going to have to switch up the training methodology a bit, which I'll have another video on very soon. Next issue that is commonly faced, especially by younger players of the game, is consistently training the same things over and over again and expecting different results. This is the definition of insanity. But what do I mean by this? Let me give you an example. So let's say you want to get better at stacked endgames, but all you ever do is play build fight 1v1s. How can you expect to get better at playing those stacked endgames if you're not actually practicing them? The only way you'll be able to get better at these things you're struggling with are by deliberately isolating those weaknesses and placing yourself in those situations. By doing this, you're forcing yourself out of your comfort zone, which if you properly implement VOD reviewing and other things like that, you will guarantee to see improvement over the span of a couple weeks or a couple months. The next issue that you might be facing is probably something you haven't even actually considered as a factor, as it doesn't have anything to do with the game, but more so involves your mental health. And this is burnout. Burnout can be absolutely detrimental to your performance if you let it draw on over the span of many weeks or many months. Burnout does so many things, such as decrease your focus and concentration, impair your ability to learn, increase frustration, and even bring a sense of no motivation. If you're currently suffering from burnout, you need to just step away from the game. Take some time away. Go spend time with your friends and family, start a side hustle, or something like that to keep you away from Fortnite. Your break might only last a couple of weeks, but for me, burnout was the contributing factor as to why I couldn't see consistent improvement anymore. So my break from the game ended up actually being about 5.5 months. And when I finally returned to the game for Fortnite OG, the game didn't feel like something that I was absolutely forced to play anymore. The fun and the entertainment aspect kicked back in, which allowed me to see more improvements at a much faster rate. The final thing we have to cover is another extremely big factor as to why many young talents are unable to succeed competitively. They aren't willing to become a student of the game. Well, what does this mean, you might be asking? Being a student of the game means having an open mind and being willing to learn. Now you might be asking, well, how do I do that? And the answer is actually quite simple. You need to be VOD reviewing and studying aspects of competitive Fortnite that you struggle with. When you're VOD reviewing, you should be VOD reviewing both yourself and professional players. You should be taking notes on mistakes you make. However, Fortnite is a game where no situation is the same as the game before. So be sure your notes are very generalized. A good example of this is, when rotating and third moving, pick a side of the zone to stick to. This could either be the left or the right side. This is general enough to where you can execute it on every single third moving zone, but situational enough to be applied no matter the circumstances. However, when you're VOD reviewing pros, the tactic we're going to be using here is actually quite a bit different. Instead of just watching through the game and taking notes, what I want you to do is pick one part of the game that you want to focus on. Let's say you like playing height in in-games, but you struggle to take height and close out the game. So you choose to watch Queasy and Veno from EU, the best height team in the world. The next thing you're going to do is skip to the in-game. I recommend skipping to the first half and half zone. Now, before you watch the replay, I want you to pause it and think in your mind, what would I and my duo do if we were in this exact same situation with these given maths and loadout? Once you have the plan crystal clear in your mind, click play and watch how Queasy and Veno play it. How is it different from your plan? If there is a difference, I want you to go back and think, why did they execute on it in this way? Once you've come up with your answers to each of these questions, write them down on a notepad. Again, making your notes very generalized so that you can apply them into your own gameplay. Whenever you first start doing this, you may not be the best at understanding why they did something the way they did, but over time, you will become drastically better at picking up on these reasonings. And with proper note-taking and deliberate usage of these tactics in your own gameplay, you will see improvement in your in-games, and in turn, your tournament placements. But if you made it to the end of this video, I hope that you've learned something new today that will benefit you in skyrocketing your improvement rate and your overall performance. This video took a lot of time to make, so if you guys could leave a like or a comment, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.